Good morning. We are heading down this access road to this lower parking lot on state land. It is the last week of the regular season, and Josiah and I are heading into this spot that we actually scouted out last week, and a spot that we think looks real good. So we're pretty excited to get in there. We had planned on hunting this last week, but the weather wasn't right, so we're heading in this morning. Whoa. And hoping to see some deer.
The road's bumpy.
Road's bumpy. Oh, we got it going on here. Wow. Wow. Dude, can we park? This is crazy. I guess we have to get here really early. There's 3 access points to this, and I've never even seen another car at the other 2 this year. All right, we're on plan B. We just parked at another access point to the same piece of public land. We haven't hunted this yet this year, or at least from this side. There's 2 cars here, so I think that makes 8 or 9 cars so far that we've seen. That's out in public land. You never know. So we're gonna give this a shot. It's a little bit of a hike in. We're 15 or 20 minutes away from legal shooting light, so we'll probably still be moving when we can shoot. Here, there's no antler restrictions. And I also have a doe tag for here, so we could really shoot anything we see. I'm only shooting a buck if it's bigger than the one I shot during bow season. I already saw a deer. Yeah, it just came running down. There's that. Don't move.
With a little practice, you can do the same thing.
Hey guys, welcome to Hudson Valley Forrests. We're in Boris's garage where all the magic happens. We've let our deer hang for a few days and we're about to start butchering her. Step 1, we're gonna skin her. So we got Boris set up. He's gonna show us how he skins a deer, all right?
Yep.
Let's do this thing.
I got it started already because we had it hanging in the cooler. So normally these are on here and I would get this started, but since we had it hanging in the cooler for a couple days, I got that done. But now what I'm gonna do is just open it up.
You can see how he's got the knife tipped like that, right? We wanna make sure that we're not digging into the meat. Yep. So we're just sliding underneath the skin. The knife tip is up,
I'm gonna try to
blade
pull this way and try to go under, so you're not making a lot of hairy mess. I'm pulling it away from the meat a little bit, so I'm not making big gouges into the meat. I always run it right down this section right here, down the leg.
You can see this knife that he's using, how tiny it is. And it's ideal to have a really small blade knife. You don't need to have a long blade in there poking around, hitting the meat. What's funny is this knife actually used to be a regular size. It was probably a 7 or 8 inch blade that's been used for so long and sharpened so many times that now it's just this little nub of a blade. But it works perfectly for skinning.
Just pulling away, working from underneath up. It'll dry there from hanging. I have a friend that collects all the hides, and he'll collect 100 of them or so, and a guy will come and pick them up, and he'll make a little bit of money on the hide. So instead of throwing them in the trash, you do a nice job on them, and you're using the whole animal.
Turned into gloves. A lot of times the deer hide gloves are nice, soft gloves. You'll see them for sale in stores.
Some spots come off easy, like right here. I don't have to do too much. I know once you do it a few times, you learn what comes easy and what doesn't. I'm just pulling it from the hide. Some spots will come, you know when to pull, and other spots you got to cut away. Does typically have a lot of fat. See, this one's got quite a bit of fat.
It's a big difference. I mean, you wouldn't see this on most bucks this time of year. The bucks, during the rut, they're just running around looking to breed, and eating is secondary. They're really just running around looking for a hot doe. The does, meanwhile, are storing up and getting ready for a hard winter and have all this fat on them.
I've had bucks that didn't have an ounce of fat on them.
Once we start the actual butchering process after it's skinned, this is all going to be taken off.
If you're not careful right here, this meat will end up on the hide. So you gotta just take your time right here. Get this started. And the tricky part is right up in here. Leave all that stuff attached as much as possible. Just barely touch them, but right here I want to keep all that as much as possible connected to the deer. Not that this meat is not a lot of meat there. It's just nicer to have a nice clean hide without a lot of meat on it. See all this white I'm keeping connected? That's key to keep this much of this connected up in here.
As with anything, this is just one way to do it, right? It's the way that he learned to do it. He's been doing it and taught me how to do it. I like to take our time and do it right, not have any meat waste, but there's always different ways. This is our way.
Yep. Once you get that far, you'll start just pulling nice and gentle right along this edge. I'm going to get it about that far. Now I stop. Do the same to the other side.
You're not fighting anything here, right? You're just pulling, it's just coming right off. You don't have to make any strange cuts into anything. You're just taking the hide right off, and you'll see that a lot of that's the same way when you're butchering. Yep. You're pretty much following the lines of the meat, right? The lines of the muscle. You're deboning stuff. You're not really making up your own cut, right? It's pretty much what the animal is giving you. There's a couple of exceptions to that, and we'll come up here where we see where he starts to work on where the tail is, where you do have to do a little extra work. Did you do some backstrap chicken spec?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Getting distracted by the smell and the look of how good this is here. This is freshly made today, venison Cajun pepperoni, and then chicken spec that he makes, which is cuts of meat that are brined for what, a couple of weeks.
2 weeks at least.
2 weeks at least, and then smoked low and slow, and you get this. It's like
kind of like
a pastrami, or like if prosciutto or something like that. You would slice it really thin and eat it like that. It's so good. But I just happened to notice that he's got some backstrap pieces that he done, which are going to come right out of right here in the back. Once you get the hide moved, you can actually we'll see him there. But it's so good.
A little steel, sharpen the knife up a little bit.
It's a noticeable difference. Just from a few hits like that, and you get that edge back. And he's almost to that point now where he can use his hands, dig the knuckles in, and sort of just, as you put pressure down, you're just sort of turning the knuckles down in.
Now I got that started. I'm going to come down here and get it so when I pull, it's ready to go. So I'm going to take the legs, do the same thing, just cutting underneath. There's no really pieces of meat I'm going to ruin if I go a little too deep here, so I'm not too worried about it. That hind quarter has all the good stuff. Has a nice pieces for steaks and roast. A lot of what you're going to get up in front will be trimming for hamburger, or if you're making pepperoni, sausage, whatever you want to make. I'm going to go right down the neck here.
We haven't seen the full view yet because the hide's still on, but I'm pretty confident that it made a perfect shot.
We'll see.
Right back behind the shoulder. It's close because you don't want to hit the shoulder and ruin all the shoulder meat, which happens all the time. I mean, because it's so close to a perfect shot, which is, right tucked in behind the shoulder here. We'll see once we get the hide off here there could be some damage to the front shoulder. You just cut around it. It's not, you want to use as much of the animal as you can and everything, but it's not worth leaving some of the bruised meat that gets damaged from the bullet wound in and tossing it in. You want to cut it out. So once we get it out, you see, just cut around and remove that stuff. And for the most part, the things that look gross will taste gross, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a good rule of thumb. If it looks really good, probably tastes really good. If it doesn't, probably doesn't taste too good. There's a few exceptions.
When in doubt, throw it out. That's the basic rule there. You got to get these edges all loosened up. Once you get it loosened up here, you'll be able to pull the hide and most of it will come right off.
That's what I was saying before. Like pretty much, it all pulls right off except for once you hit the tail here. And you don't need a saw or anything, just a knife.
If you get it right, there's a lot of fat on this dough.
Find the right spot right there.
Right there through the tail. Pull that down.
A lot of fat, huh?
A lot of fat.
There's the bullet entry right there.
Might have to cut a little bit around the legs. Right here's another spot. It always sticks. You just give it a little, loosen it up right there. Once you get down there on the neck, it usually starts to stick. How's it over here? Yep, see, it's kind of more attached right there. You just loosen it up. I got it loosened up in front there, so I should be able to work right around the legs. Like that. We're gonna get right down to the head, and when you do it right, you can use your little knife and cut the head right off, or you can use a saw if you're having problems with it.
There's another thing that's amazing. You would think you'd need a saw for this stuff, and it's amazing that you can find the right spots to go through where it's just ligaments and cartilage, and you can actually cut what you would think would be where there's a bone and take it out. I mean, even the legs, you don't need a saw to cut through here and there. Just got to find the right spot. On a bigger deer, you can actually leave sections of the neck and cook them like a stew, and just really low
Like a
and
nice
slow.
pot roast.
Yeah, like a pot roast.
Sour braten.
Do it in a crock pot or something. Braise it in a cast iron.
If you had your own deer and you skinned it right as soon as you got it, put it in the cooler, the worm hide comes off real easy.
If you do that and you skin it right away, and then you're going to hang it though, you get a lot of meat exposed to the air, and it starts to dry out more. So a little bit tougher to skin cold, but I think it's way better because you protected all the meat. You can see where it was exposed, like on the inside, and it's dried out. Boris, I'm feeling pretty good about the shot.
Looks good.
Yeah.
No scungili.
It's the exit here, so just through the rib cage, and we pick through the rib cage, and we'll still be able to get some, but there's a lot of damage there, but that's minimal. I mean, the least amount of meat that could be wasted possible right here.
I'm going to try cutting it with just a knife. There's a little V you start to see when you get all the way down near the ears. I just cut past it, but you'll see a little V shape here. You go to the bottom. It was like that. Go right down, slow as I can. Cut around here. There it is. Just go right through there. If you don't get it that easy, you can give it a little twist and it'll snap right there. Then on these feet right here is what I do. You could saw them off. The easy way is to saw them off, but when you know what you're doing, if you get it right, here's the knuckle. You go down just around the bottom of the leg, right across there. It'll snap that way. Always watch where you're cutting. Watch where your knife's going. Don't cut yourself. Save your tag. Cut this off. I say with all due respect, dear, we love you. We'll take the best care we can of you. And I mean no disrespect. Cut these off now. We'll just spread this out and get it out of here.
This one's for next year. Not bad.
Good friend of ours shot that deer.
Yeah. Farmer. Nice deer he got this year.
I just spread it out. He'll salt it when the farmer will salt it. He'll spread it out and salt it.
He'll bring it over to the farm. The farmer will open right up, salt it all up, and then we'll lay them flat on a pallet, and then they'll come get picked up and made into something useful. It's so important right now to get the hair all off the deer right now. You don't want to start messing around with that when you're butchering it. You have little pieces of hair here and there, so we're going to get a rag and some water and just give a good rinse down and just make sure we get all the hair off before we start breaking it down.
I'm using warm water, leaving the rag a little bit wet. I'm going to get most of it off. I'm going to change my water and do it one more time. Some guys bring over trimmings for me to make the Cajun sausage that I make. and I look in the bag and it's got a lot of hair in it. You know, they didn't do this step to clean it off. And I look in there, once it's a bag of trimming, there's nothing I can do with it. I said, they must like hair seasoning because I can't get it out of there.
The trim meat, so for the burger pile, it'll be ground. On a 115-pound deer, after we butcher it, so all the bones are removed and a lot of the fat is removed, which, you know, what are we going to end up with here? 40 pounds?
40 pounds maybe.
45 pounds of meat. You know, we'll make sure we show you how beautiful it turns into from this to all the different cuts, steaks, stew meat, burger meat.
I think we're good. I'm going to trim off some of this fat right here. Just a bigger knife to kind of clean some of it up. I don't have to do it again later.
No matter what, we're going to take this fat off anyway. It's easier to do it in this one shot than having the broken down pieces. And
an old timer asked me to save the fat because he's putting it out for the birds.
Even the fat's getting used. I wish I could use my fat for something.
You're fat. If I cut down the middle of this fat, I'd have to clean here and here. But I'm going to try to just make this piece coming off all meat. There's where the deer was shot. We'll go around that. Just to get this out of the way. It's, you know, you throw this into the trim pile, it's all meat.
All right, this is going to come off and it's going to be ready to go right in the trim pile. All we're going to have to do later is trim the fat off the other side. It goes with any part of the meat you're cutting. You know, you're going into a front shoulder or a hind quarter and there's fat that needs to get removed. Always on one side. That part's done and you come back and do this one. Now it starts to take shape. Right, you start to see these big pieces of muscle. And when you start seeing like the back strap getting cut out, you know, just like when we gutted a fish, right? We were cleaning the fish. It's a fish, and we gutted the fish, and then you look at it, like, oh, now it's a fish ready to be cooked and eaten.
Get rid of some of this dry stuff here. Clean up some of the fat. Normally, there's only one piece of meat. It's really two pieces of meat inside the cavity of the deer, the tenderloins, the filet mignon. And if they stay in there while it's hanging, they usually dry out and are not so good. So a lot of times we'll cut the tenderloins right out when we first hang the deer. So these have been cut out, but they're right here, the tenderloins. This, I'm going to cut the trimmings. I'll tell you, my sister has some dogs, and I would save stuff like that for dog food. This is fatty. It's really hard to pick through. There's some meat there, but it's so much fat, it's hard to really spend time on. You'd waste a lot of time trying to get that. This is a little dry right there. I cut that off. And at the end, when I'm all done with everything, I grind that up. And actually, it looks like beautiful ground meat, but it's all the stuff you would normally throw away.
And the dogs love it.
The dogs love it. So the front leg's very interesting. There's no bones connecting it to the body. There's no knuckle like in the back. There's a knuckle that connects it. Here, it's just tendons that connect it to the body. So I don't have to cut through any bone or anything. I'm just going to pull the leg out, start close to the leg here. Just pull it away and it opens right up. I'm going to cut along up here. The shoulder blade is right along the top. Don't go too deep there because you got a little backstrap meat. There's a big piece of fat right there. But there you go. Nothing connecting that to the body except the tendons and muscles. I'm going to get this area, it's where the bullet, this is the entry. I'm going to try to clean it out. There's a nice piece of meat right here in the bottom, the brisket meat. So let's see what we can get out of this. Again, I'm going to try to keep the dirty stuff on one side as much as possible. And you see, as awful as it looks, you can kind of clean this up. But then you only have one side to really clean up. Usually this will come off in like a layer, like a jelly layer. So as bad as it looks, you can just kind of get it out of there. So what looked awful doesn't look so bad all of a sudden. A lot of guys would just take that and throw it right away. But you usually don't have to. Our technical term for that is scungili. So we get rid of the scungili and you're left with a nice piece of meat. Sometimes it's too scungilied, you can't mess with it, but this was a nice shot and we'll just clean it up. And so for a little bit of work,
it's a nice shot.
You get a little more trim to throw into the trim bucket. Now we got the shoulders off. I'm going to go ahead and cut the neck off and we can clean that up a little bit on the table. So it's just a matter, it ends right about there. So we'll just go there, go around here. Come over here. Come around through there a little bit. And we'll take the saw on that. On a buck, it would be at least twice as big as that, but it could be 3 to 4 times bigger than that. We'll clean that up a little bit later. So now we're getting into why a lot of people hunt deer, for the back straps. Back straps, loins, whatever you want to call them.